Hello, welcome to Dream Team Scout, and this is another episode on the Sun Dream Team tips for Game Week 2. Now, listen, Game Week 1, we were excited to be back, and we are back. Or as they would say on Sky Sports, we are live. And listen, it was an interesting week, man. It was an interesting week, and with no further ado, let's not waste no time. And like I said, let's not stand on ceremonies here, Mr. Wayne. So let's just get to it straight away, bro. So the first game, the first game, which was on a Friday, as you could see, 4-2, Liverpool won that game easy. We could see the returns on points for all of the teams. So Liverpool did their thing, like Ekitike, with the goal and assist. Gappo did his thing, Salah did his thing at the last minute. So there were some good points there. Wirtz was a bit of a disappointment, but it is what it is. And Frimpong got sold, but he got his 7. So it was decent. And if I'm just looking at the Liverpool team, players to recommend, without no further ado, we know, listen, I'll be going for Ekitike. Obviously he scored the 13 points, and I did say he got the goal and assist. He might face, his only risk is that he might face early substitutions, probably around the 17th minute as they rotate the band, get the balance of the side. But I would say if you have got him, keep holding for another 3 game weeks. If you don't, bring him in and hold him for another 3 game weeks. Now, I know Liverpool's fixtures are a bit harder. They play Newcastle, Arsenal, but then they play Burnley and Everton after. So you might think of bringing him there and then. But if you've got Ekitike, hold on to him. It's probably going to go by 200k. So yeah, that's a no-brainer. Likewise, for Gappo, who got his goal, scored 11 points. Once again, he played 90 minutes, and I did say last time on the last episode that he probably make the left, spot his now. So, once again, he did his thing. So those would be the 2 Liverpool players I'll be recommending. I don't need to recommend Salah because if you could get Salah in your team, get him there. It is what it is. So I don't want to waste too much time talking about players that we could bring in that, we all know about Salah. And if we just switch it up to Bournemouth, we could see on the screen that, they weren't really good defensively. And that showed that they lost 3 out of the back 4. So I expect Bournemouth to have, problems in defense whilst they shuffle and try to get it right. But, and they've lost a few players. But surprise, Semenyo still at the club. Which was a bit surprising. So, but listen, the guy scored a brace, scored 16 points with 2 goals. And listen, I'm actually favouring this guy to, to do his thing. And, I've said on here, 2 goals via Liverpool and facing Wolves and Brentford, who have conceded 7 combined. So, making him a viable option. However, he's not guaranteed he's going to start both games. And his ownership level is 11.2. So people are clocking onto, his expertise. And then the only risk with him is the possibility of not starting both games. Now, I think definitely, obviously, he plays a game against Wolves. Now, if things are going south against Brentford, then he might be on the bench to pop off and to come on. It's 4.5 million. It's definitely going to go up by 300k, the maximum that prices are allowed to go. And yeah, it is one I'll be considering really strongly to bring in. But then if you're just looking into the future game weeks, we know was Tottenham, Brighton, and Newcastle. So not the easiest of fixtures ahead. So it might just be a 1 week punt, or people having the strategies to increase in price to have better defenders, and so they might go for these players increasing in value. So yeah, that is that on Semenyo. And if we were to go to the next team on the list in game week 1, just bear with me a second, and that would be Newcastle and Villa. That was a boring, very boring game. Villa were awful. I watched that game. Villa were awful. Surprised they didn't concede. They could have conceded. They got the red card. Constantly doing the right thing, bringing them down. But they kept a few clean sheets, and we know they all kept a clean sheet. They did keep a clean sheet. They all kept a clean sheet. But and now we know Martinez is suspended, so the keeper Bizzo did his thing, got 9 points, and he was decent. So, but he's more likely a temporary fix for people that have him. And then but once again, just looking at the Villa side, if I was to recommend any players, would be the defense. Digne, I spoke about him last week. I'm going to speak about him this week. You know, he's kept a clean sheet against Newcastle, and obviously a better team with a striker would have scored. But I don't see Brentford posing much of a threat with no Wissa. They were a bit toothless, and they scored with a penalty the other day. So I'll probably say Digne at 4 million, probably going up by 200k. So you could bring him in. I mean, you look at Villa's upcoming fixtures: Palace in 3, Everton in game week 4, and then in game week 5, Sunderland. So I'll probably say you should probably target a Villa defender, and his ownership is 1.6. So people are really going for him right now. 4 million defenders is deemed very expensive, so I kind of get it. So he scored the 8 points in return. You could look at his counterpart a bit cheaper in Matty Cash, who scored 9, got a bonus point of 1, and ownership is 2.8. And if, like I say, if you are going to bring these guys, keep them for another 3 game weeks. That would be my advice anyway. Looking at the Villa defenders, then if I would look at the Villa attackers, ones that you could consider, and the ones I am considering, Rodgers. Now Rodgers is 5.5, not the cheapest. Have I got it right on here? Let me just pop down the screen. Yeah, it's 5.5. And so he's not the cheapest, but he scored 2 points. It was awful last game. Just know if you are going to bring him in, his value he's going to depreciate at least by 300k. However, we're not playing for player. I mean, it depends on your strategy. Are you playing for the players' values, or you're playing to get the points on board? Either ways, there's no right or wrong. So then it depends on your strategy. But right now he's got ownership of 2.1, which ain't the best, and should expect him to have more, but I'm considering that because it wasn't deemed fit per se, so people didn't really want to take chances on him, should I say. But I would say Rodgers. As a game week captain, no. But as a differential, if you've got the funds, I'll probably say either him or probably Ollie Watkins, who, once again, poor. He done 3 points, and he just registered the 1 shot against Newcastle. But like I've said on here, the Brentford defense shouldn't be as formidable as what he faced at Newcastle. So this is my last spot on him already. So he needs to deliver, and that's facts. I expected him to do well against Newcastle, considering his pre-season form and the disarray Newcastle have been in. But hey, it is what it is. As a game week captain, maybe, but I'm not too sure. I probably need him to hit the ground running. So Brentford is a good place to do that. And then if I was to just flip down the Newcastle team, decent return with the defense, but when I look at Newcastle, the fixtures ahead is just off the chain. I look at they're playing Liverpool next, and which I don't really fancy bringing a defender for that. Then game week 3 where they play Leeds, and then game week 4 where they play Wolves and then Bournemouth. Then you might consider maybe for that short spell. But at this point in time, knowing that the next fixture is against Leeds, yeah, I wouldn't be considering any Newcastle defenders at this point. Attackers, I just probably feel like I would probably get better value elsewhere. As like I said, the Liverpool game is a tough fixture. However, we did see Semenyo do his thing. But listen, sometimes lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it as that for those teams. And then if we're just going to the next teams in next in line would be Sunderland and West Ham. Listen, West Ham were poor. Sunderland were great. We could see, Reeves Mayenda on the, high performing list on the right. And, Adingra did his thing. And then most especially the defender, Ballard. Ballard? Am I saying his name right? But anyway, he scored 18 points. He got 3 bonus points. The game week 2 fixture is against Burnley and Huddersfield. Now, does he start both games? I do not know. There might be rotation, but it looks highly unlikely, and it looks like a threat from set pieces, because if you watch the highlights, you'll know that he came close with scoring a goal prior to getting that goal. So Yeah, and he's definitely an enabler, like I said, and good favorable fixtures allows you to build your team. So for just 2 million, you're definitely going to go about 300k. So is one that you could really consider whilst trying to get your team flying up the leagues. If not, then you could look at his counterpart in Robin Reeves, the goalkeeper. Once again, is 2 million, should be going about 300k. The fixtures are favorable. More likely, he might play both games, but who knows? And if you are going to bring him, I'm not too sure for how long you're going to hold and keep this guy for, but probably say in game week 2 and game week 3, which is obviously this week, you're going to bring him in, and game week 3 where they play Brentford, more likely that they could also keep a clean sheet. So I'll probably say until game week 4 when they play Crystal Palace, then you might decide to get rid. Both players are not probably eligible for being captains, so I wouldn't advise that anyway. As a part of that. And then if we're looking into West Ham, Zilch, more people went for Bowen, Fulcrook. I saw Dupes and all sorts going on. People for Sunderland was going to be a walk in the park. But like I always say all the time, it is what it is, man. Every time it's not as clear as day sometimes. It's not as clear as day. So yeah, that is with those teams. And then next on my list would be Wolves, Man City. I'm just going to start off with Wolves. I don't really see any player I would like to bring up Wolves. I watched that game as well. Montesa was a threat during the game, but Bournemouth, West Ham, tricky fixtures for Wolves. I don't really know with Wolves who they're going to play per se. The defender Hover, it was okay, passing the high test. But obviously, Dream Team Returns was one, so not really looking at anyone from Wolves, should I say? But then you're looking at Man City, who won blistering from Haaland. Obviously, that goes without a shout with you having Haaland in your team. That he was definitely the first pick in my team, Haaland and Palmer. So just to give you that, I would say. Haaland 2 goals, so obviously that's a definite bringing in. But a player that stood out for me was, Tijani Reijsnijers, who sort of stepped into the KDB role and sort of detected the tempo, so how they played, and he definitely was a great watch, and scoring that amount, I think he got the 1 goal and assist. And it literally, I think he would feature heavily, and on his popularity should increase. He's got ownership of 13.4%, so people are definitely clocked onto him. And I would say if you are going to bring him in, then you want to hold him for at least until game week 5, and that's against Brighton, against Manchester United, and against Arsenal. Or you could do until game week 3. So it is what it is. So so that's what it is. And then looking at the defenders, I would say looking at the defenders of Man City, I would say Nuri and Lewis. They scored 11 and 12 points. But if I was to go and pick one, I'm not too sure if Lewis is going to feature all the time, even though he's got the 12 points. I would say Nuri, who's got the 11. He was a bit shaky at the start. It was a bit shaky. Like I said, in the first, he had a torrid first 20 minutes against Wolves, but, grew into the game. He made 6 tackles and then a bonus point in the process. So his position on the side doesn't feel threatened. It's 12.8. So obviously you've got a good, people have got some good stake in them. And I would say, Bayern Ho, obviously, and once again, I wouldn't put him as captain. Tijani Reijsnijers is a maybe for me, and Haaland is a yes, most definitely as a captaincy for this game week. So, that is that with, Man City and Wolves. If you're just tuning in, or if you're watching this video and skipping through, like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe for me. And then to go into would be Brighton and Fulham. Wasn't really much to talk about when you look at Brighton. You got O'Reilly, who was on a high performance list, got 10 points. You got Rota, who sort of played up front, also in an advanced run and won the penalty, and so he gets the assist for that, scored 6 points. And so he's the one I would be, pinning out from Brighton. Still got the deficiencies where they don't keep clean sheets. and that's just a shame because I know most of people went for the Kuiper, who sort of lost his clean sheet so late on. But I would say Rutter, he scored 6 points in this game. And he's up against Everton, who were awful against Leeds the next game week. And I believe he could do the same thing against, he could get another return of 6 to 7 points. Him playing against Oxford, I'm not too sure. But if he does get subbed early against Everton and does, replicate the same return, then more likely we'll probably play in against Oxford. He's got his ownership of 1.9, so not much people staking in him. So it's a differential, definitely. Like I said, the early risk, his risk is, early substitution. So, but yeah, it should be going up in price at least by 200k or at least 100k. So yeah, that's for you to sort of think and ponder about. So that would be the only pick I'll be saying from Brighton. Fulham, they didn't really do it for me. I know Muniz came off the bench to get 7 points, but right now Fulham are not really screaming at me. They're not giving me the incentive to wanna, pick their players. Now I know they're playing Man United next, and that's a tough fixture for them. And then they got Bristol City. So I do see a few people with Wilsons, and that might be a good shout. But yeah, if I was picking from these two teams, yeah, Jota would be the main pick for me. Just stepping out that one. And then also, what other teams am I missing on here? Then yes, sorry. And then we've got Spurs and Burnley, 3-0. Richarlison brace, but Kudus assist. Richarlison scoring probably one of the goals of the season already. He scored 17. Kudus did 11. He was definitely, I don't know why I didn't bring him in. I had him shortlisted, and then I didn't go through. I just, I don't know, snipped through my thought process. And I actually shortlisted him. Just didn't fit in my team at the end, which is a bit silly because that was fantastic returns. So he's one definitely that stood out. Richarlison gets hot and cold, and I'm used to Richarlison from in the past. Like his form is not really that great, injury prone. So I'll be picking Kudus. He's got 2 assists against Burnley. And it's probably they're playing City, so it'll be a much tougher game. But if there's anything that's going to come out of Spurs, if anyone's going to trouble City's backline and get at Antonuri, then it will be Kudus. And yeah, the upcoming fixtures after City is Bournemouth, West Ham, and Brighton. So once again, still tough fixtures. Bournemouth are not easy, but then West Ham pretty much shit at the moment. So captain for this game week, no, but one that you could consider, I would say yes, most definitely one that you could consider for this game week. So that would be my pick from those two teams and the exploits in game week 1. And just going into the Sunday fixtures, Chelsea, Crystal Palace. Chelsea did the thing, keeping that clean sheet. Cucurella, Achimpongi was 2.5, James. And I was recommending Gusto, thinking Gusto was going to get the nod. So I messed up there, guys. My bad. So Chelsea looked a bit solid, or maybe Palace were not up to speed, but Chelsea were lucky to have that goal wiped off by the referee, which is a fantastic player, scored that. Palmer was a big letdown with a 2 points return. So yeah, and that's just annoying because I got Palmer, and now he's going to really depreciate in price, at least by 300k, so he probably might go to 5.7, which is alarming. And then Pedro as well, which I thought was going to be taking the opportunity to do his things, got 2 points as well, and was subbed as well. So I don't know if it's going to start in next game because they've got Delap on the wings and probably be knocking on the manager's door. But once again, I'll be going for suggesting that you still stick with Palmer, and I know Palmer's been one of the most transferred out player for Saka. So I could see the strategy with that Leeds easy opposition, but I said don't rule him off because West Ham were also poor. West Ham were very poor, so I would say it's still too early to just dismiss him like that. Captaincy for this game week maybe, and listen, the Chelsea fixtures. West Ham, then Fulham in week 3, Brentford. There's still some. There's still some good points to be had there if we, if we show some discipline. But listen, I understand that you don't want your players depreciating in value, so it is what it is with that. Same for Cucurella. I think they should keep a clean sheet. So if you've got him, his funds should be going up as opposed to Palmer going down by 200k. And like I said, another clean sheet is feasible. West Ham's attack was blunt, versus Sunderland. He's got ownership of 16.3. So that's definitely, most people do believe he should do his thing. Although his Chelsea teammate, which I mentioned earlier, Palmer, is on a 50.7% ownership as of when I made this video, which is on a Thursday. So just looking into that, and then also Pedro could be one more last shout. You know what? It faces rotational risk with the lab, but I would probably say that they might believe in him considering his exploits during the Club World Championship. They might give him another run just to see how he performs. Now, if he doesn't, then I probably think game week 3 against Fulham, the lab might get a start. Captaincy potential for Pedro and Cucurella that I mentioned previously, no. Palmer is a maybe, but certain people might lean towards a different strategy of captaining a player who's got a double game week. But it's just difficult knowing that the main players will be playing double game weeks in the Carling Cup. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one, people. But yeah, and then moving on to the other team on Sunday. Just bear with me a second. Let me get it on the screen. That would be Man United and Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal fan. Awful game. We played so crap. But listen, anyway, the points on display. United did a thing. Buemo and Cunha were problems, and the point reflects that although they lost, but they came up with 5 to 6 points. Now Bruno got 4. Now United got a good fixture coming up against Fulham and Grimsby, both away. And if I was to pick a player, I was thinking Buemo because he looked dangerous, but I would go for Bruno. I think when the chips are down for United, he rises to the occasion. Although he's 6 million, Buemo's 5.5. I would say Bruno is definitely an alternative, and I think it's a good shout for the next 2 game weeks. One against Fulham and then against Burnley. This next game week as well. So I think you probably could bring him in for this game week alone or keep him onto game week 3. So it's worth a shout. It's worth a shout, most definitely. It's got 4 points, so his price should depreciate, but once again, it is what it is. What are you playing for? The value or the points on board? Let me know. And if we're just switching it to Arsenal, awful. Obviously, the defense done the thing. They kept a clean sheet. Calafiori, getting that goal, so scored 13, although it got subbed early. I'm not recommending Calafiori this game because I feel like we're playing at home. So he might start off with Lewis Skelly. That is my gut feeling, because we're gonna have more control of the game as opposed to Calafiori is a bit more. I'm guessing he's meant to be more defensive minded, but he's very not defensive minded. Probably might be deemed a better defender than Lewis Skelly, but whenever I see him play, he attacks quite a lot. Anyway, let me not drift off into talking about Arsenal, but yeah, just looking at the Arsenal players I'll be recommending for this game week would be Bukayo Saka. Obviously 6.5. It should be going down to 6.2. So once again, if you're bringing in Saka, know that he's definitely going to be losing value, but more likely regain that value, and I expect him to play well against Leeds. And he's always been Arsenal's Mr. Reliable and AKA, like I said, AKA Mr. 90 minutes, because Arteta never subs him off. So you could bring him for this game week alone. They've got Liverpool in game week 3, and then in the game before we've got Forest, who were tough, and then we've got Man City. So this game week alone. Anyone else? Rice, I considered maybe. Gyökeres. Not just enough. His touch was awful. It's atrocious. So let's just skip past that. Don't have flashbacks on that. And then the final game on Sunday was Forest and Brentford. Forest were brilliant. I did recommend Ndoye last game week to you people. Anderson's name was going all over the web, as a good enabler. He got his assist with 8 points. Gibbs White did his thing, 9. So there was some good points to be had there with Forest, and Chris Wood. Every time we rule him out, he just keeps doing the goods. He just keeps doing it, and he could be a differential, Chris Wood. It could be a differential if we're gonna, if we want to just think outside the box for a second. Now it's 4 million. Should go about 300k. Obviously, you got the 16 points this game week. The risk of rotation, none. Should start every game. They've got West Ham in game week 3, so he could perform in that game week. And Palace are a more solid outfit, I would say that. So he might not enjoy the battle with Gay and Cole. But he could be one. Chris Wood, is one. If you look at the change of strike for us and get someone that's not really on the radar of people's eyes, then I'd probably say him, although his ownership says otherwise with 9.5. So, but game week 3 fixtures against West Ham, game week 4 Arsenal, then game week 5 Burnley. So, is one that you could take upon on this game week and for next game week and see how he goes. But so, just looking at Nottingham Forest, that would be the player I recommend from that. Brentford, literally nobody. Literally, I look at that team and I feel Brentford are going to be fighting for relegation. So, yeah, that's my take on Brentford. Should I say? I ain't got nothing else. I got nothing else left in me. I got no fight. And then to the most boring of games, the drabbiest. It was just dry. It was Leeds, Everton, and I ain't really got much to say about Everton lost 1-0. They got some cheap defenders there with O'Brien, and it was on 3 million, and so could do his thing with regards to allowing you to build somewhere else. But they've got Brighton. I mean, not Brighton. Yeah, they got Brighton and Mansfield. Is he going to play both games? More likely so, I think. But listen, so you could probably consider bringing him in, but it's not one that I've highlighted to come in this game week. And then for Leeds, also Statch, got his assist, 10 points. But once again, they're facing Arsenal, so it wouldn't be one I'll be considering. Now, Perry, the goalkeeper, I probably would have said maybe it might be a steal, but they're facing Arsenal, and I expect Arsenal to do well. I expect Arsenal definitely to do well against Leeds. So yeah, so that's it. That's on the recap and my suggestions for game week. The recap on game week 1 and my suggestions for game week 2. And just to let people know, and I probably didn't mention it earlier on, my captain choices for this probably game week is Haaland, which is obviously Haaland because it's Haaland, Salah because it's Salah. But I'm out of those two, then I'm leaning towards Saka as my captaincy for this game week. But please, guys, do let me know what you're thinking. I ain't got the answers like Kanye. I ain't got the answers, Sway. So please do let me know, because sometimes we do these things and we could be in our own bubble, in our own space. And I've been yapping for at least the last 28 minutes. Now, so just to go into my team, I'm sure people would want to see my team and now what my plans are moving forward. So yeah, I got decisions to make. And as you could see, my team, I went with Haaland. Bowen, and Ekitike. Bowen was something I did like probably 2 minutes before deadline, and so regretted it because I should have. I mean, to be fair, it was going to be a Gakpo or Pedro, more likely Pedro, because I don't really like having two strikers from the same team. So I guess in that sense, then Bowen scored more. Palmer didn't do great. Wirtz didn't do great. So I got my midfield is struggling quite a bit, but I was lucky that I captained Haaland, and that got me 92 points. My defense really helped me with the double Villa. We're bringing in Bizzo and Digne, and hopefully they could keep flying that flag. Cucurella did his thing. The Kuiper, unlucky to lose that clean sheet. So I would say that the defense was sort of putting the attackers to shame in my team, somewhat. But then obviously Haaland is the main man, the big, the big Viking, the big robot, the big mean machine. So helped us. So and yeah, so considering in my team who I'll probably be taking out, more likely Bowen. I'm definitely looking to move Bowen, and not too sure. And probably more likely between Bowen and Palmer or Bowen and Wirtz. I'm not too sure. I have to really think about this one. But then most definitely Bowen, I think, might leave. The defense I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't touch. But yeah, and that is it for my recommendations this game week. Once again, please like, share, and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. Tell me what I could do better. And it is what it is. Dream Team Scout, over and out.